Fitness is a key priority for many Americans, especially young people. 56% of Gen Z say that fitness is a, quote, very high priority. That's compared with 40% of overall U.S. consumers. This is according to a survey conducted by McKinsey. With the rise of at-home options for workouts like Peloton, how are gyms and boutique classes competing for Americans' hard-earned dollars? We've got Evelyn Webster. She is the CEO of SoulCycle here with us in studio. Great to have you here. I mean, I understand that you just got off of a ride earlier this morning as well.
I did.
So you've already got your workout in and closed your rings. I need to do the same a little bit later on. Just take us into the mindset of how you're operating SoulCycle through this consumer environment right now, where there is more discipline about some of those discretionary dollars, even if they are going into something as servicing as making sure that you are just getting your fitness in.
So we are seeing such enormous growth in our business, actually. And so, I mean, of course, we're still dealing with the after effect of the pandemic in many ways, where habits essentially fundamentally had changed. But as consumers are increasingly focused on wellness more broadly and really becoming much more sophisticated in terms of how they're thinking about wellness, it's not just about physically how I feel, it's also mentally and emotionally how am I feeling about my wellness overall. We're seeing this huge growth in the category, and definitely for SoulCycle in particular, it's all about community, and so people want that human connection again. So we're seeing a lot of growth in the category, even though consumers are changing the way that they're thinking about wellness more broadly.
We always say health is wealth. What are some of the top trends that you're seeing in wellness right now that you believe could drive 2025?
We're definitely seeing, I made this point earlier about consumers are getting much more sophisticated. They want data, data to support the assertions that organizations are making about why something is good for you physically, emotionally, mentally. And so they're increasingly looking for data. Of course, they have access to much more data now with wearables. I think that's going to continue. And the definition of wellness is going to get much, much broader. So, wellness was this buzzword that we were all using, but not to be corny, but it is a lifestyle. Wellness is now a lifestyle, and so it's a very active choice that consumers are making with their time, effort, and their disposable income.
How do you go about orchestrating the right pricing for wellness, knowing how consumers are prioritizing, but also knowing that consumers right now are trying to figure out, okay, I've got to spread these dollars over several different places, and we just got the CPI print this morning, which really ran down the list of where consumers are paying more and paying less. Where does fitness play into that, and how are you looking out into next year and saying, this is where our pricing also needs to be cognizant of the environment too?
It's a really great question, actually. And I think we are continuing to explore different economic models for SoulCycle to ensure that we are affordable and accessible to the consumers who are increasingly seeking fitness. It depends on how you choose to ride with SoulCycle. You can just pay as you go, no commitment, and that's one pricing model, or you can choose, I'm going to make a commitment, actually, I'm going to lean in. And we are seeing an increasing number of our riders who are more inclined to make a commitment, and as a consequence of that, they can drive the price down. And so they're getting smarter in terms of how they think about their wellness holistically. They're also getting smarter about what's the optimum way for me to invest in wellness, and am I prepared to make a commitment which will drive my price down.
How is the business doing for SoulCycle right now? It's not an update that we regularly get.
Yeah. Well, it's doing really, really great, actually. We're continuing to grow. Clearly, managing a business like SoulCycle, which is 90% in real life, at the height of the pandemic, that was not fun. But since kind of middle to late 2021, we've been seeing double-digit growth every year. And so what's really fascinating about our growth is it's not just riders that rode with us pre-pandemic who have returned to SoulCycle, some of them slightly more slowly than we may have expected, but it's the new riders who are joining the community. And so we're seeing a huge explosion amongst Gen Zs and young millennials who are realizing that actually the optimum wellness journey needs to be 50% strength and 50% cardio. There's definitely been a shift through the pandemic to more strength, less cardio. It needs to be 50-50, and so we're seeing younger consumers really gravitating to brands like SoulCycle.
Are there more modules that you see SoulCycle needing to add on, or optionality that you see SoulCycle needing to add on? I think about some of the growth in HIIT classes, some of the growth in the reformer Pilates machines. How do you look out into the different competitive elements that are out there in the landscape and say, you know what, we would be right to kick the tires, or at least see what type of demand is there from our customers?
So that's a really excellent question. And we have tried different modalities. So we have what we call B studios at a couple of our studios, which means you can go into the cycling studio, you can ride 45, 60 minutes, whatever it is, and then go into B studios to do meditation, to do Pilates, to do strength, to do stretch. That is popular as an added value component of SoulCycle. What I think is more interesting is that as consumers lean into emotional and mental health, that's the soul in SoulCycle. So for me, I think there's a much bigger opportunity if we lean into the soul versus other fitness modalities. Other players do those very, very well.